I am sure you have used the lookup function in Excel. And when I say the lookup function, I'm talking about the XLOOKUP, the VLOOKUP, the HLOOKUP. These tools are powerful tools that make your work standard, especially when you need to bring in data sets from different sheets. VLOOKUP is the most popular use because of the orientation of most data sets. Is VLOOKUP giving you troubles trying to get the most out of this data from these multiple sheets? Do not worry, because I've got your back. Power Pivots is what I have come to bring to you today. Power Pivot is your extra power to perform that wonderful analysis you want to perform from different data sources, yet with minimal code. Power Pivot is your extra power. And of course, you know how we do it. Let's hop into my computer so that I will walk you through all the steps on building a robust data model with Power Pivots. All right, so this is the interface of Excel. When you go through all the tabs in this Excel worksheet, you will notice there is no tab named Power Pivot. And there is also no ribbon named Power Pivot. And why is that? This is because Excel does not come by default shipped in with Power Pivot. It usually comes in as add-in in Excel, which is more like an extra functionality to help you do a better job with Excel. Now, to use Power Pivot, you need to enable it. You need to enable the Power Pivot tab. To enable the Power Pivot tab, you go to File, Options. So on Options, you navigate down to Add-ins. When I click on Add-ins, you will see all the different add-ins that we have here. Up here, it's supposed to be the active add-ins, but I do not have any active add-ins. Then below it, we have the inactive add-ins, and we can actually add we can actually make any add-ins active from this point. So to make anyone, before we make anyone add-ins, when you scroll down, you will see Microsoft Power Pivots for Excel. And this obviously is the add-ins that we are looking for. To select this, you need to understand the type of add-ins that it is. It is a COM add-in. And since it's a COM add-ins, we'll navigate down to Manage here. On this drop down, we select COM add-ins, and next we click on Go. On this new window that popped up, we have three different COM add-ins. We have three different COM add-ins, and we are interested in Microsoft Power Pivot in Excel for Excel add-ins. So I will click OK. As soon as I click OK, you notice on my tabs, we have a new tab here known as Power Pivot. Guys, that's how easy it is to enable Power Pivot in Excel. Before I continue, I need to make note of I need us to understand that not every version of Excel comes with Power Pivot. So your version may not come with Power Pivot, but for everyone who is using Office 365, Office 365, you should have Power Pivot. And I also presume that most companies and most businesses actually use this. And if you're using a personal mode, if you're using Office 365 personal, you should also have access to Power Pivot. All right, so let's move on. So on this Power Pivot, we have some functionalities on the ribbon. We have the Manage tab, Measure, KPI, Add to Data Model, Detect, and Settings. On this Manage, it's when you click on this Manage, you have a different window. Now I'm going to try to minimize this window so you see it. This is my Excel window, and this is my Power Pivot window. On this my Power Pivot window, this is where I perform almost everything in Power Pivot. And it's so simple to use. We will come back to it in a bit. Let's go back to the Excel. So we're back to Excel. By this, after this manage, we have measure. This is where you come in and create all the measures that you need for every data set that you have. All you need to do is to select the data set or the sheet and then create your measure. This measure it's more like the calculation you perform in Power BI. For those of you who have used Power BI, this is the same DAX function, DAX measure you create in Power BI. You can actually create it here. And guess what? It uses DAX. So you use all the functionality, the powerful capabilities of DAX to still do the same thing in Power Pivot to make your Excel reports and analysis at the to be at the same level with what you get in Power BI. All right, so let's move on. When you are done creating a measure, you can then use the measure to create KPI. So you cannot create KPI without a measure. You use the measure to create your KPI. Okay, so after that, the next thing we have here is add to data model. Now, this add to data model, it's all about when you have your table or your sheet, just like I am on the territory sheet here or territory table, I could easily click here and add it to my data model, which we'll actually do later in this video. So the other ones, the date and settings, we don't really need them for this. So that's it, and that's how simple this ribbon is on Power Pivot. Now to start, let's move into the Power Pivot interface or window. To do that, all you need to do is to click on Manage and the window pops up. Do understand that Power Pivot is not for data cleaning and preparation. You can always do that in Power Query. This is for your data modeling, where you have multiple data sets from disparate sources. This is where you perform it. Please take note of that. This is where you blend the data, you create the data model, create relationship with your data. Essentially, the Power Pivot is a data modeling tool that allows you to prepare your data model, that allows you to prepare your data in a way that pivot table can use. It allows you to prepare your table in a way that pivot table can use. That's essentially what Power Pivots does. So if you have just one table, you don't necessarily need Power Pivot. The power of Power Pivot becomes obvious when you have multiple data sets from disparate sources. But when you have one, you can easily move it to pivot table and do your analysis. But when there are more than one, I tell you, instead of using VLOOKUP and XLOOKUP, Power Pivot does better and cleaner work and even much more consistent work for you. Now, on this, you will see the usual things you see on Microsoft Excel. You have your paste, some functionalities of paste, append, paste and replace, copy. You also have your data sources where you can get external data sets. You can get from things that relate to SQL Server and Access databases. You can get data from old data feed. Now, the one I am mostly interested is that you can get data from other data sources. And this is from other data sources, you can get data from different data sources, which includes Excel, CSV, and some other databases, depending on what you want. All right, so let's close it. Of course, this is for existing connections. Moving forward, we have refresh, we have the pivot table. These are familiar environments if you understand the concept of refreshing your data set when you have new information. We also have a place where you can format your data to give it what you want, and we are going to still use it to prepare it for your analysis. Now, we also have the sort and filter. These things are grayed out because we don't have any data here yet or any table here. We can find, we can also perform auto sum, we can also perform sum and create KPI just like we did on we did here. So measures and KPI. This measure is the same thing as sum here. Let me expand this. This measure is the same thing as auto sum here, but this is much more powerful because you will have the power to do much more. This KPI is same thing as creating KPI here. All right, let's move on. This data tab and diagram data view, this data view and diagram view are two, if I am to say, very important or most important part of what you do here. On this data tab, you're able to see your table in a tabular mode, in like a table mode. Whereas on this diagram view, you're able to view your data in a you're able to see see the relationship in your tables. This this diagram view will enable you to see the relationship in your table, just like the data modeling tab in or data modeling view in Power BI. This is exactly what it does. This is the data view on Power BI. This is exactly what it does. Just the same thing. Data view like in Power BI, the data modeling view like in Power BI. These are exactly what they do. So take note of that. This is hide and show, and this is calculation area. Okay, so let's move on and get the data set. This is where the fun starts now. Okay, so to get a data set, I am going to come to from, because my data is in CSV, I have some sales data, I have products, customer data. So let's go and get them. First, I want to get my sales data. They are all in CSV. So I'll come in here, test file. So click on next. Here we have the name of the data we want to bring in. So I will name it sales. The next is where the location where the data is, the file path where the data is. So I could go copy the file path and paste it in here, or I could browse it, which is much more easier. The next on below it is the type. Because I chose a CSV, a flat file, it asking me the type of the delimiter that separates my columns. And these are just like, we have the CSV, comma separated value. In other words, values that are separated by comma. The next order, there we have tab separated value, values that are separated by tabs. We have semicolon, we have space, colon, and even vertical bars, depending on what you want to choose. But mine is established. You should understand your data before you try to choose the right delimiter. Now, mine, I understand, is a CSV. So I will go on, and CSV is the most popular one out there. So I'll go on and leave it as CSV. When you also come down here, you will see use first row as column header. Does your data have a first row? If it does, then you should click here so that it will use it as a column header. So when I tick this, I am happy. Now let's go and find my data. This is my data. So I'm picking 2015 sales. Okay, so it's coming up. And here we are. So here we are. I will, so here we are. It is showing me that, okay, you have your first row is my first row. So it's showing me that this is the preview. This is my data preview. So it's showing me that my first row is the name of my data set. Do I want to use it as the name? Yes, I want to use it. My first row is it's the is what my first row is what I want to use as my header. So to do that, I will tick here and it's processing it. Excellent. So it's done processing it. Instead of giving me field 1, 2, 3, F1, F2, F3, it's now picking my first row as my table, as my column names. And I am happy with what I am seeing here. I could scroll by the side and see everything. This is perfect. Okay, that's how my data looks like. I'll click on finish. So successfully, it has actually loaded my data. So when I close here, I will see my data populate. And this is really cool. I am loving what I am seeing. Everything is so in order. So you can see the data. And if I want to add more column, I can add more column here. If I want to perform any DAX arithmetic, any DAX operation, if I want to perform any if I want to perform any calculation on my table, so you can see I can perform them based on the column. If I want to perform it on the stock date, I can come in here and perform it. If I want it here, I can come in here and do it. And you can perform as many calculations for every column as you want. All right, so let's move on. Let's go and get another data. To get another data, I want to get the product data. I'll still come back here and click. Go down there, select test file, come in here. As we know, I want it, the name of the data set is product, call it the product data. Okay, so it's a CSV file. I'll come in here. Let's go one step up. It's products. Good. So we have it here. And always remember, you can still see if I don't tick this, it will name my columns as F1, F2 up to the end. But I need to tick it to ensure that it picks it right. So I will tick here and it's processing. Excellent. It has picked everything and I am happy. I'll finish it. If you trust this data source, yes, I trust this data source. So I'll say okay. And excellent. So it has successfully loaded. I will close here. And as soon as I close it, you will see my data. Okay, so let's do something. Let's come down here. On this tab below, you will notice, just like in Excel sheet, you will notice the name of my data. So my tables are in different tabs. And you can perform different things on this tab. So, but before I will go to that point, let's bring in all the other data sets. Okay, so I am here. I want it to be by the start after product. So I will go to from again, and where do I want it is a CSV file. Again, the name of this data is the name of my data is, so I've got the customer, I've got the sales data, and I've got the product. So the next is the customer data. So I will name it customer and I'll go in, get it. That's customers. Okay, so name it as customer. So I'm going to delete this. Customers, that is fine. Again, I want to pick my first row as the header and I am happy. So let's bring it in. Excellent. We have a good job done. Okay, so we now have 3 data sets. So another thing we also can do, it's normal for you to have your data in Excel. May not necessarily be in CSV. It's already existing in Excel or in your Excel workbook, which you actually opened. So I understand this concept. So that is why we have this. Let's go back to Excel. That's why we have this Excel this territory data in Excel. And I will recommend that when you are using your data in Excel, it's smart that you change it to table. Don't just use sheets. So if your data is in Excel, is in table, it becomes smart. Tables in Excel are smart. What happens is if you have new data entered, it will quickly pick it up. But if it's in a range, it's not going to pick it up by default. So that's why I would recommend that you have it in table. Okay, so now that we are here, all I need to do is to pick this data that is already existing in my Excel sheet and add it to my model. That's all I need. Click on add, and I have it here. Easy. That's how simple it is, guys. That's how simple it is. So I have all my data sets. These are all my data sets. Everything is complete. But as you know, though these data sets come from the same business, but they don't know that each other exists. They don't communicate with each other. This is where the data model comes in handy. That's where Power Pivot shines. We are going to work on creating relationship amongst this data, amongst these data sets, so that they can easily communicate with each other. So to do this, I have two ways I can do this. S- First, I have before I go in there, we have the sales data. When you check the sales data, which is more like the transaction data or the fact table, it has the keys that connects to all the other dimensional tables. We have the product table, then we have the product key here. This is the key that the sales table uses to communicate with uses to communicate with the uses to communicate with product table. Product key, let's go to product table. We have product key here. So with these two keys, they can communicate with each other. Let's go back to sales. Territory key. This is the com- This is the this is the column. This is a column that the sales table uses to communicate with the territory. Let's go to territory. So that's the sales territory key. So we are in order. Let's go to the next one, which is customer customer key here. From this, we can communicate. The sales table can communicate with the customer table on this key, customer key. Now you need to have this link, this communication point for your data modeling to work. You need this communication point for them to work. If there is no point for them to communicate, if there's nothing linking them, then you cannot link them. They will not make sense. This is because transaction in customer, this is because every transaction in sales, it's performed by a customer. And this customer buys a certain product. This same customer lives in a certain region. So for region, we have just a fixed type of region that all our customers come from. These things don't easily change. Dimension columns, dimension tables don't change so easily. Customer table is also another dimension that does not really change easily, because I mean it's not easy. People don't just wake up and change their name randomly. They plan it out, and these things take time. So perhaps in a lifetime, someone might just change his or her name like once or twice. So these things don't change often. But when you come to sales, we keep having repeated transaction about the same customer. In other words, in sales, you have like 10 or 15 services, 10 or 15 orders that came from one customer. You could also have 50 or 100 orders that came from a certain region. We also have, again, we can also have orders for a for we can also have hundreds or thousands of orders from for a certain product. In other words, all the dimension data, all the rows in all the dimension tables are unique, but the sales table is not unique, and that's why we call it the fact table. Others are dimension, and this is not a data modeling. This is not the class to explain dimensional modeling, but this is just a little overview of how dimensional modeling works. So here we are. Let's move in to the tab view. Let's move into the diagram view and get to see our data in the diagram view. My most favorite part of my this is my most favorite part of Power Pivot. So I'll click in here, I'll click on here, diagram view, and I am here. When I click data view, it brings me to the data view. I could also come down here, see at the bottom here, we have down below here, we have the data view and the diagram view. So I can change any of them. It's easy. So I'll go back to the diagram view. I can drag and drop these things however I want, depending on how you want it. So because my sales data is my facts table that all the data, all the other column connect to, I will have it in the middle. So as to create what we call star schema. So I can also come in here, drag it to see all my columns. See, that's how simple this is. See all my columns. So let's move it here. Now I want to connect, let me have this here since it's a shorter one. Okay. I want to connect the customer to sales. All I need to do is to come to customer, drag, click on it, hold it, drag it, and drop it on customer key. And I have created a relationship between sales and customer. And that's how simple and beautiful Power Pivot is. Okay, so let's see. This relationship, when I hover over on this connection, you notice that the columns, the fields that create this connection are highlighted. That's how you know the columns that are used to create this connection. When you go to the dimensional part of the data, which is the customer, you will see one written here. And when you come to the facts table, which is the customer, you will see star written there. You will see star here. So this star represents one occurrence, one instance, one occurrence. This one represents just one. So what it means that for every one customer we have on the customer table, we have multiple or many transactions on on the sales table, or many orders on the sales table. Again, for one customer on the customer table, we have many transactions on the sales table. This is why we have one and many. And this is a concept known as one to many relationship in data modeling. One to many relationship in data modeling. Okay, so the same way, let's do it for territory. For territory, I will drag. Either way, you can drag it from bottom to up, from sales to territory, from territory to sales. So I will drag it here. I'm looking for territory key. Here we go. And it has created it. Again, it just created the relationship between territory table and sales table. Okay, so let's do the same for our product table. This is our product. When you look at this, we have the product key here and the product key here. All I need to do is to click on it, drag it, and drop it here. But you know what? I'm not going to do that. Let me show you another way we can create the relationship. Let's go back to our data view and come to sales table here and come to, I think I need to rename this sales table. I'll come back to it. So I'll come to product key here, right click on this product key. You will see create relationship. Click on create relationship. So I have a new window which will allow me to manage my relationship. So the first table is sales data and the column is I am choosing is highlighted. The same column I want to use to create the relationship on. Do we want to do? Products. It's the next table we want to link it with. So I'll select it and make it products. And it automatically detected that we are working with product key. And that's how beautiful it is. I can make it active relationship or inactive relationship. But now let's stick to the active because that's what we want. And again, just okay. And I have created that relationship. You may not see it here. When we go to the diagram view, you will notice that I have created it. Guys, that's how simple it is to create this amazing data model and completely avoid the hassles and the inconsistencies, human errors that come with using the XLOOKUP and the VLOOKUPs. So here we are. If I want to manage this my relationship, I will need to right click. Assuming I created it on the wrong path, I will right click on it and I can make this inactive. I can edit the relationship. It brings us to this view that we just saw last. I can also delete this relationship. And when I delete it, it just goes out. So delete it. I'll delete it from the model and we don't have it. But we need it. So let's drag it and drop it here. It's customer. So we are good with this. And this is so beautiful. All we need to do to go back, we need to just go back here. So on this data view, I could add in more columns, which is simple. When I click on any column, I can actually say the data type it is. I can generate the format where it is. So let's start with this. This is the date, and I want the date data type. I want the data type to also be date. All I need to do is to come in here and change it, but it's already detected it as date. I can also come in here and say the type of date I want. So I am only interested in short dates. You know the way you do it in Excel, you can easily do it here. So I'm interested in this date format and it has picked it. The same way I can pick up this, it says it's date, so we are happy. Pick up this and we are okay. So this is the product, this is the customer, product key, customer key, territory key, order line, order quantity. So this is number. I am happy for it to be whole number. Other line item, I'm happy for it to be a whole number. And guys, that's how simple it is. If we come to customer here, we will see things like amount. So amount is not showing that it's currency data type. So let's change it. We have currency here. Change it to currency. And all right. So it has changed so easily. And and that is how you can do all these things. And this is so simple. It comes shipped in with all the smartness of Excel, with the extra power that Power Pivot gives it. And with that, you can create anything you want to create. That's how simple it is. So we are on sales data. Let's check this product table. On this product table, we have product cost and product price. If we want to know how much, if we want to know how much revenue we got, this is the product price and this is the order quantity. If we want to know how much revenue we got, all we need to do is create a new column here. I'll name it revenue. I'll right click and rename it revenue. Simple. So on it, while I am on it, I'll come, while I have it clicked, selected, I'll come to function here. You see revenue is selected. I have, I will come to this tab, function, which is the same tab you have in Excel. This is the name, then I will start. So what do I want to do? I want to create revenue. The other column I want is in product table, and then the other column is order quantity. So let's come. There is a function in DAX known as related, which is what you usually do in VLOOKUP. So I would say related, but this is so simple. It allows us to use DAX function. So I will select it. What do I want to do? I want to pick up a column from products. So that column is my product price. So I am picking it up, and that is it. It allows you to go to another table and pick up a column, but it will not work if you have not created your relationship, which is the data model we created earlier. So, so let's do this. I'll close this bracket and I multiply it because that is what we want to do. Multiply it by order quantity. So I'll start typing order quantity. So start typing order quantity. It comes out. That's order quantity. I'll select it. Okay, so I will click on enter key, and our calculation is happening. Okay, boom, we have it. We have successfully created a new column on this sales data. Now we can see our revenue. So if we want to know, so everything looks okay, we could also create total revenue. For us to create total revenue, I'll come in here. So I'll come in here. All right, so to create total revenue, I just need to select this revenue, come to auto sum. I want sum, total revenue. That's what I want. So it's sum that I want. The aggregate function I want is sum. I'll click on it. So it's going to calculate the revenue here. So let's expand this. And that's the total revenue. I want this. Okay, so sum of revenue, and I think I like it that way. I like the name it gave to it. Let's change this data type to currency. That's currency. Good. So it has picked it up. It has picked dollar up, which I am happy with. So it gives us two decimal places. If I wanted to make it reduce the decimal place, I can reduce it by clicking here, and it will. All right, sorry. If I want to increase it, I can increase it by clicking there, or reduce it by clicking here. Okay, so that is it. So I've been able to create this. And if you want, if you need to create more revenue, if you need to create more measures, you can come under here and create it. If I want things like average measure, if I want things like average sales or average revenue, I can come here and create it. So let me select my column again, my revenue column, and I will come in here. I want average. So it's going to create it under this. And it knows, it is smart enough to understand what to do. So check it out. That's how simple it is. And when you click here, as this average revenue is selected, when you come up here, you will see the formula. The name of the measure is average of revenue, which I could rename as average revenue. I can come in here, click on it. Good, good, average revenue. And if you click on the sum, let's click on sum. Good, average sum of revenue. That's how simple it is. So if I am happy with what I have done, what do I need to do? I will come in here, click on pivot table, move these things to pivot table. And it's asking me, where do you want it in this existing sheet, or do you want it in a new sheet? Of course I want it in a new sheet, so I will accept that I want it in a new sheet. And here we go, guys. Check this out. Isn't this beautiful? We have the customer table, we have the products table, we have the sales table, and the territory table. Check them out. Let's expand them. Okay, so let me bring this down. So let's expand them, and that's it. Sales, that is it. So if I want to perform any arithmetic, because they are linked together, all I can go is, where is our revenue? This is our revenue. I'll click on revenue. It's summing up everything. I can click on it, or I can drag and drop it here on value. So Excel understands that it is a currency, so it needs to put it on value. What do I need again? Let's go to territory. Because my data is connected, I can pick up countries and put it in row. I think I like it in row. You see? And these are from different tables. Now, having done that, it's highlighted the table. It made the table bold to tell us that these are the places where our to tell us that these are the tables where our calculation, or pivot table calculation came from. This is what it is doing. That again, it's beautiful. I could also come in here and pick up my average revenue. That's my average revenue. Here we go, my average revenue. And guys, this is beautiful. That it's just so sweet. It is just so sweet. I could also come in and use products. I could use customer, depending on what you want to use. Because these data are connected, you can use them to do what you want to do. So I will encourage you, multiple data sets, multiple sheets. Stop using VLOOKUPs and XLOOKUP. Make your life easy. Try to be consistent. These things, try make your life easy. Build a much more, robust system that will be consistent. A much more robust system that you can always go back to. Don't stop using the shortcut. This is actually a better shortcut. Why should you even care to use Power Pivot? The number one reason why I strongly recommend that you use Power Pivot is, just like you saw here, just like you saw here, Power Pivot in pivot table, with Power Pivot, you can bring in multiple tables. But without Power Pivot data modeling capability, you cannot do that. You can only bring in one table at a time into pivot table. And it's up to you what you want to do. But with Power Pivot, you can do this amazing job of bringing in multiple tables into pivot table. However, if you have just one table, have one data set, you may not have reason to use Power Pivot. Perhaps maybe for the DAX functionality, you can use it. But I think with one table, you can just go straight and build your pivot table, build your analysis. But with multiple table, I will strongly recommend Power Pivot. The second reason why you should use Power Pivot, there is no low limit to the data set compared to just conventional Excel, which has about 1 million row limit. But with Power Pivot, there is no row limit. The next one is you can easily and efficiently combine data with Power Pivot compared to what VLOOKUP does for you. Power Pivot, another reason you should use it is that Power Pivot comes in with DAX function instead of conventional Excel function. If you know how to use DAX function, then Power Pivot is your extra power. The other reason is the access to the tab view. Man, this you cannot find with Excel. Use Power Pivot to make your life easy. Use Power Pivot to make your life easy. The data view helps with the functionality of drag and drop in building data model to allow in building dimensional data model to allow all your different tables to communicate with each other. Guys, that is the reason I think you should use Power Pivot often when you have multiple data sets from disparate data sources. And thank you. So if you are getting value from this video, I will encourage you to subscribe. Share this with your friends who will really need this in their workplaces, or people who are coming up with Excel. Share this with them. Give this a thumbs up so as to help me with the YouTube algorithm. If you have not subscribed, I will encourage you to subscribe to my channel because I dish out things that will help you at workplaces. Things that will help you at workplaces and in your personal projects. All right, thank you and keep analyzing.